Warning, Star Trek From the Holodeck contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue to listen.
Lock and load!
Fire!
Holodeck 3 program is reinstated.
Open sesame!
Commander Klingon vessel. We are energizing transporter beam. Now.
Warp 1, engage!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Star Trek From the Holodeck, the Discovery Edition. I am Michael Flores, your host, and in the studio with me is David Sabal.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so today we're going to be breaking down Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 7, Light and Shadows, directed by Marta Cunningham, written by the amazing Ted Sullivan and Vaughn Wilmot. Yeah, just another great episode on top of a great season so far. We're 7 episodes in. We're pretty much halfway through at this point. I believe we're supposed to have 14 episodes this season, so we are at the midpoint. And I can honestly say, Dave, I love what we're getting this year.
Oh, dude, I am digging what we're getting. And do you know what the amazing part is? This is actually a solid time travel episode.
What?
I mean, telling a time travel story is really difficult, especially if you want to make sense. And this episode, they did a hell of a job doing a time travel story.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say full-blown time travel, but I will say this. I do agree, Dave, that whenever Star Trek decides to wade into time travel, or any TV show for that matter, it can get messy very fast. And they kept it tidy. They kept it neat. They didn't try to over-explain things. They made it relatively simple, even though we had a lot of technobabble, the classic Star Trek technobabble. They still kept it to a minimum and made it easy for the layman to digest and understand what was happening. And
yes,
that's a win, because I know there were points during the run of TNG where people I remember fans like, oh my God, I don't even know what you guys are talking about. Tachyon pulses and antimatter injections and nacelle plasma fluid. What are you talking about? So they're mixing the good with the old. They're giving you that technobabble, but also making it fairly easy to digest as long as you're paying attention. And that's one of these shows, Dave. If people don't know that yet, then you're going to be lost. You have to pay attention to what's being said, because nothing is done. There are no throwaway lines. There's nothing wasted. Everything that is written on that paper is used. And that's something that has made me really love this season, because there isn't one part of that script that is being wasted or thrown out. They're using every portion of that page to make sure they can get the most out of it.
Yeah, this is what this definitely reminds me that this is a Star Trek series, because you're right. Star Trek, when it comes to technobabble and scripts, it's very easy to pinpoint bad sci-fi when they use the technobabble and it doesn't make any sense, or it doesn't flow right. And I mean flow, but as in like writing, narrative.
And a lot of that has to do with the actors as well. The actors,
the portrayal and everything.
Yeah, the actors have to believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not going to convince us. If you don't know what you're talking about, then it's going to be really hard for you to convince the audience as well.
Dude, and I give a lot of credit to the actor that plays Stamets, because he throws technobabble like an artist.
Yeah.
Like he knows, okay, I gotta make this sound believable, but on top of that, I gotta make it sound believable coming from my character.
Yeah. Well, I think what helps a lot of that is the interplay between Stamets and Tilly, and how they have them talk to each other about the problem. And it's a form of exposition, but they found a cheat. Normally, exposition is a no-no. It's like, no, you're doing way too much exposition. You're explaining things by talking. Show us, don't tell us. But they found a gimmick or a cheat that actually works to help explain things by having the two of them work together, and one of them figures out part of the problem and the other figures out the other, and then they have to join in the middle and basically share each other's findings,
Yes.
that helps with a lot of the technobabble aspect. Not only does it justify it, but it helps explain it as well.
Absolutely, because like the thing that makes it amazing watching them work together is the chemistry between Stamets and Tilly. And it comes down to, it's very likable. I'm actually digging the whole, I think it's going to become like a thing between them when their conversations is believe in the math.
Right.
And I'm getting to actually
The
like
power
that.
of math,
The power of math, people. And I'm like, the first time they did it, it was cringeworthy. But this episode, it was like,
Yeah.
it felt natural. It felt like actually, this is a conversation between two, I use this term, geeks talking.
Right, yeah.
Two
Well,
math geeks talking.
What about the power of hot, sexy red hair? How about that? Is that a
Are you
thing?
talking about Detmer?
I'm talking about Tilly and Detmer.
Tilly and Detmer?
Yeah. Let's see some Star Trek scissoring soon. That's inappropriate.
Progressiveness, Star Trek. I want progressiveness.
You want progressiveness? Let's have a lesbian sex scene. Come on.
Come on.
All right. So before we get too far into this rabbit hole of sexual innuendos and disgustingness, a few people have had some questions about when our shows are released, Dave. And basically it's as follows. New Discovery episode breakdowns will be available every Saturday during Star Trek Discovery's regular television season. Also, twice a month, subscribers can get, and when I say subscribers to our feed can expect 2 additional shows to be released. One update show where we talk all about the news of Trek, and then one topic show. And it could be a review on a comic book, an episode of Trek, a discussion on a specific Trek theme, you name it, we'll probably do it. So theoretically, people can get up to 6 shows a month from us from the free side of things, not even including what we give out or put out on Patreon. So that should fill in the knowledge gap there. I know some people were trying to figure out what our release schedule was, and that is it.
Yeah.
All right. So this week's episode, Dave, did not slow down. Just another example of an episode with tons of energy and excitement. And with that energy and excitement, we were given a lot of pieces to the ever expanding season 2 myth arc. I really dug the dual narrative this week. They doubled down on the story progress by breaking the episode up into a dual parallel narrative. And by doing so, they covered a hell of a lot of ground this week. We got our first real glimpse of Gregory Peck's portrayal of Spock, which was great timing. It took 7 episodes to get there, and I'm okay with that. That's something that you and I have said since the very first announcement that Spock would be in this season of Discovery. What did we say? We said, that's great. We love some Spock, but please don't rely on nostalgia and what has come before in order to build excitement or build your own story. Your own story needs to stand on its own 2 feet, and they have managed to do that. So now this is the moment when you can bring Spock in, and it doesn't signal desperation. I feel like when you have these big gets, these big fan wants, I should say, like Spock or Kirk or whoever else you can manage to name that's an iconic Star Trek character at this point, when you bring them into a new story, I feel like there's a sense of desperation. It's like, oh shit, we don't know. It's like
a jump the shark moment.
A bit, yeah, just a bit. And that's something that you and I were really hoping would not be the case this season. And it's not. They waited half the season before they even introduced him into the story. And instead, they used him as a MacGuffin a bit and as a way to flesh out the story of Burnham and create a more personal and intimate story. And it's worked. They also took a few moments to flesh out some of Pike's issues this week.
I like that. That was actually really interesting seeing his... It was one of those things that it was always hinted at, but it never came out. His feelings about why he doesn't trust Tyler.
Right. They hinted at it at, I believe, the first episode, that the fact that he's been struggling with a bit of guilt. I mean, that's just a great character motivator, period. And I hope they push that idea more. I'm hoping this week's episode wasn't the nail in that coffin. Irium looks to be infected with a virus of some kind, or possibly under the influence of an entity of unknown origin. That's exciting. Either way, it's a welcomed, unexpected turn. We do need to learn more about Irium and what exactly she is, because we know next to nothing about her. Is she an individual with wants, desires, or is she simply a cybernetic tool used by Starfleet? No different than, say, a tricorder. These are questions I had. Now, if I'm having these questions, I'm sure other people are as well.
Yes.
What is she? Is she like Data? Does she strive to be something better, or is she happy with her allotment in life as a tool of Starfleet? Is she no different than a piece of a communication device or a tricorder?
That's what everyone was
Or is she a person, right? Are those things you've been questioning too?
That's what I've been questioning too, is because like ever since they introduced Arium, even like in the background, everyone constantly asks, well, wait a minute.
Everyone, Dave. Everyone
asks,
like, who is she?
Who is she?
Do?
What the heck is she? Because the only android up to that point that we know of is Data. And to actually see Arium, it was actually a really great tease, because I was like going, I want to know, just like what you said, is she just a piece of equipment? Is that how she's seen, or does she actually have some kind of personality drive? And so far from what we've seen, she is a robot. She's plain and simply a robot.
We don't know much about her, and that's why I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with her moving forward now that she has been, I don't know, infected or taken over by a presence. Either way, this is going to be a great way to finally flesh that character out, because I feel like she's one of the biggest question marks up to this point. I mean, I feel like we know a lot of our characters. Yeah, we don't know a lot about Oswo or Detmer or Rise, any of the main bridge crew yet, but we know of them. They have been given a lot of face time this year. There's been a lot of moments where they each have their due, maybe not individual story arcs at this point, but we do know of them. Arium, we really don't know much about her other than the fact that she's a cybernetic being of some kind.
And dude, the way that they've been doing introducing characters, it's very subtle, and they're doing little, like, they're not pushing anything major in your face. Just the little subtleties that they do, like especially like when Arium gets taken over, right? At this point, we know that she's a robot. She's shown no emotion. And the fact that they cut to a shot where she's just has this little smirk and you see the red glow in her eye and everything else, that added so much to that character.
Well, it's not her that's smiling. I'm sure it's whatever took her over.
Whatever took her over.
Yeah.
But now we have this added extra layer to Arium, where it's kind of like, okay, is she a villain at this point, or is she going to kind of help us along? Is there something going on?
And this is very fluid. This is a very fluid way to develop a character, opposed to, all right, well, this week we're going to have a Tasha Yar episode.
Yes.
Next week we're going to have a Geordie LaForge episode.
And everyone could skip the Wesley Crusher episode that's coming up.
Well, I usually did, Dave. But this is more seamless. This is just a moment in this ongoing story, and the importance now shifts to a character. It feels more seamless when you do it this way, more organic, like it's just a part of the natural flow of the story. And through that natural flow, we're going to get that much needed development on this character. All right. Also, tons of science talk and time rifts, time tsunamis this week. And we must not forget the mentioning of Talos 4, which we have an entire segment planned to dissect and break that aspect down towards the end of the show. Dave, let's move on to news, okay? Before we get into this week's complete discussion and breakdown, we got to talk about the recent Star Trek Discovery news.
Yep.
And Dave, despite what trolls will have you believe on the internet, Star Trek Discovery was never in fear of being canceled. And we had already discussed this and the whys a couple episodes ago. But Discovery has officially been renewed for season 3, which I am ecstatic about. And not only are we getting a season 3, but we're also getting a new showrunner that is going to be joining as of the second half of this year. I don't think she's going to have showrunner credit until next year, but is working. I believe she came on board halfway through the production of season 2. So she's now in that writing room with everybody else. Now, according to StarTrek.com's official press release for the renewal of season 3 of Discovery, it's official. CBS All Access today announced the 3rd season renewal of Star Trek Discovery, and also that Michelle Paradise will join Alex Kurtzman as co-showrunner for season 3. Additionally, Kurtzman will continue to oversee the expansion of the growing Star Trek universe for CBS Studios. Now, even though it got renewed for season 3, there were still trolls saying, well, look at another showrunner. This is the 5th showrunner this show has had now in 3 seasons. That's not entirely fair. Brian Fuller was the creator of the show.
Yes.
He never really even worked a full day of production.
Yeah, he left.
He wrote the script, but before they even started shooting, he was gone.
He was gone.
Then you had his proteges take over, which were a duo team. Gretchen Berg and Aaron Herberts. So that's 3, I guess. Technically 2. Then you have Alex Kurtzman this year, who was already in charge of the production as a whole, right?
Yes.
And now, starting with season 3, you're going to have him working with Michelle Paradise as co-showrunners, which I kind of expected that anyways. We already had spoken about this, I believe, on one of our Patreon shows, or maybe it could have been even a Discovery discussion. I can't remember now, but we've actually been talking about the future of Alex Kurtzman. Like, how is he going to remain the showrunner while also
series.
Running the entire Star Trek television universe?
He can't do it.
He can't. But name me one person that can do that. That's almost impossible.
Yeah, because then he has to keep track of the Picard series,
the Section 31 series, and the Nickelodeon series, and the Lower Decks cartoon. There's 4 properties now that he has to oversee. So when people are pointing to this news and saying, oh, look they're having more troubles on set. There's no troubles on set. Kurtzman is doing the responsible thing and sharing the responsibility of a show that needs the full attention of a showrunner.
Yes. And that's why the way I see it, I see this as it's Michelle Paradise, right?
Yeah.
I think the way it's going to happen is next season, Kurtzman and Michelle Paradise are going to co-show run, just like what it said. But by season 4, and that's saying a lot because that's speculating that they will have a season 4.
Oh, they will. Come on.
Michelle Paradise will take over full time.
You think so?
Yeah, because I think there's going to be a transition. Season 3 is a transition phase for Kurtzman, and to not quote unquote phase him out, but basically hand over the reins to Paradise while Kurtzman goes to deal with other Star Trek projects that are going on, because that's the job of Alex Kurtzman that I think is amazing, is the fact that he has to be able to not just control the one show, he has to control up to 5 shows now.
Yeah, and
there's also the rumors of the merger happening and then a possible movie happening.
Yeah,
he's gonna have to deal with that. That's a lot to ask for one person.
Agreed. I was actually going to just bring that up, not to mention the merger that may happen or will happen. And when that happens, he's probably going to be given another promotion. He's probably going to be in charge of the movies as well as the television front as well.
Although if Kurtzman does actually take over the movies, the one hope that I hope for is
the one hope you hope for.
Man, I'm turning into Chekhov. But the one hope I do have is that he brings back J.J. Abrams, something from J.J. because J.J. had some great ideas.
Well, he did have great ideas. I'm not going to ever take away from J.J. I think he's a very capable director. But he kind of drew a line in the sand, Dave, when he chose to direct Star Wars over Star Trek.
You think?
Yes, he did. Into the fandom, that's very important. I know it's very childish and silly to look at things like that because a job is a job, right?
Yeah, that's how I see it.
I do too.
It's a job.
I do too. But there's many people in the fandom that feel like he drew a line in the sand and he chose his favorite fandom over another. And now people, I don't feel like even want to see anything he does for Star Trek. There's a lot of hate because of him leaving. And of course, because of Into Darkness. A lot of people
that's a good point.
was very disgruntled with that movie, and rightfully so. There were some big issues with that movie. All right, Dave. So this new era of Star Trek is here to stay. So despite trolls and what the YouTube video bloggers will have you believe, this show, CBS All Access, is just fine. They had closed close to 2.2 million subscribers as of November, Dave. And now, based on this last report, they now have over 4 million. That is some serious growth in less than 6 months.
Yes.
So all those haters that were throwing around baseless rumors had zero facts behind their toxic rants. All right, get more Star Trek from the Holodeck every single month by pledging to our Patreon page. The only way we can keep doing the amount of work we do is with the support of the listeners. By pledging a minimum of $5 a month, you will not only help us keep the network afloat, but you will also gain additional from the Holodeck discussions 2 to 3 times a month. So when you pair that with our free discussions, listeners can end up getting up to 9 Star Trek podcast discussions every single month. That's a lot of content, Dave.
Trek.
Have you noticed that we've been doing that much work?
No, not actually. Honestly, no. It just seems like I've basically been a whirlwind of Star Trek, Star Wars, and all of the above.
Now, Dave, take those 9 shows that we do just for this show and multiply it by about 10 across the network.
Across the network.
This network is putting out, what, close to 90 episodes a month of content between Patreon
for fans.
There's a lot. So please help us out. Head over to patreon.com/RainManDigital and pledge. We're not just asking for handouts. We're not panhandling here. We're actually giving you content. Think of it as you purchasing content as well.
That is a very logical assessment.
Yes, it is. All right. So let's move into this discussion. Let's talk Spock first, since he was definitely the highlight of this episode. The season has used Spock and the Red Angel as a bit of a MacGuffin most of the season, but that looks to change a bit now that Spock is being pulled directly into the season's narrative. There are so many implications in this episode, especially if you're a Star Trek nerd like you and I, Dave, that, I mean, I just gave up jotting down notes halfway through the episode because I didn't have enough paper. There was so much going on in this episode. So I'm going to
the possibilities.
The possibilities, Dave. So you and I are going to attempt to give it our best try to break it all down and draw some conclusions and even state some assumptions. It's really the only way we can tackle an episode like this. So let's start with this one line of dialogue that really stood out this week. And it was the discussion between Amanda, Burnham, and I believe Sarek. When the line in question, or the line that they stated, Jesus, we were on a roll here. 30 minutes without a fuck up. The line of dialogue was, maybe the Red Angel showed him, Spock, of course, a future he could not process. The reason why I bring this up, because from here, most of our discussion is going to unfold.
Yes.
Has Spock seen a glimpse of his future? Has Spock seen what could happen to his planet, potentially? That connection to the Kelvin timeline. Has he seen a glimpse of that alternate timeline? Or is it something a bit more grounded within classic Trek? At the start of the episode, Burnham mentions that the Mutara sector.
Yes.
Now, for all of us Wrath of Khan fanboys and fangirls, we know immediately what this place is.
Yes.
This is the location of the Mutara Nebula and will end up being the location of the Genesis planet. According to the wiki, the Mutara sector was a region of space under Federation control. The Genesis sector, an area of space within this sector, consisted of the planet Genesis that was created within the Genesis device once it exploded inside the Mutara Nebula. Now, why is this place relevant? It's where he dies.
Yep.
I mean, how much more simpler can you state that? It's where he dies and eventually is reborn. So for the Trek fan paying close attention, this also could be a part of the reason why Spock couldn't come to terms or process the impending future. Spock's human side and his Vulcan side could be fighting to understand all of this.
Yes.
There can be an internal conflict between emotion and logic that has locked his mind This could also make sense because of the well-paced personal log of Burnham at the very beginning of the episode as well, when she says that the greatest mysteries comes in threes. And can I just say trifecta of brilliance, please?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Also threes, Dave. We're on to stuff, Dave. We're on to stuff before the writers even know they're onto it. So this whole thing that Amanda used to tell Burnham, that the greatest mysteries come in threes. Birth, life, death.
Yep.
Like I said earlier in this discussion, there's nothing that's just wasted dialogue.
No.
Everything matters. So if we take that into account, we then start to realize what the implications could very well be. They are drawing parallels or connections to Spock's impending death. That's my strong belief. I don't know if they're necessarily connecting it to the Kelvin timeline. It would be cool. It would make a lot of sense with what's going on with the Red Angel as well. But when they just nonchalantly said, well, the last time Spock was spotted on the scanners, he was in the Mutara sector. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Holy shit. There's, out of all the places in space that you can go to in Star Trek canon, and they chose the very place that he dies. There's a reason for that. Don't think there isn't.
Oh yeah, and that's what I mean is like, just to take it even further, because people are wondering, well, what couldn't break Spock's mind? What can send him into the kind of like this nervous breakdown? As they portrayed it really well, that he had a nervous breakdown. His mind broke.
His mind could not make heads or tails
of it. And I was to take that further. If you take Spock's life in complete, take a look at the complete history,
a snapshot. Yeah.
Every single part of Spock's life up to even the Kelvin timeline is really chaos. He goes back in time, saves whales. He dies. He gets reborn again. He sees the birth of a planet that shouldn't be there. That's why when you mention the Mutara Nebula, I'm like going, well, wait a minute. The one question we were questioning about in that episode was, why did Spock go there? He would probably go there to see, okay, I die on this planet, but the planet's not there. What the hell? There's no planet here. But he knows that he's going to die there. That would drive a man insane.
Well, yeah.
Because his whole life has been nothing but chaos.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and following up your line of thinking, that absolutely does work with everything that we were just talking about as well. It's just he hasn't lived. He doesn't live a regular life. His future is destiny at this point.
And if you think about it, they've come out and basically said that Spock is a special Vulcan. He almost has kind of like a autism when it comes to.
Okay, that's what I got too.
Yeah, when it comes to his Vulcan characteristics.
Was it autism? They said it was more like
it was like a dyslexia.
Yeah.
And if you were to actually show someone like that, utter chaos, a being that basically up to this point in Discovery is nothing but logic.
Right.
He would have a mental breakdown.
Well, that's exactly what I believe Burnham said to Sarek, that logic is the only thing keeping him alive right now. And that if you take that logic away, his brain will just fall apart. And think about it. The one thing that he kept repeating to himself during his break is the quote unquote logic, the logic doctrine,
the tenets and the doctrine of the Vulcans of logic. And he keeps repeating it. Why? Because you could kind of say it's kind of like a patient trying to
keeping him grounded
because he just got shown something that his brain cannot process.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dave. And that very well could be the fact that him repeating himself and trying to convince himself of logic is him trying to deal with what he saw. I think that's very clear, Dave. I think if anything we can say, I think it's a fair assumption when we say that he was probably shown all the different avenues that his life has and could take, and it just became too much. Now, there is a third option as well. What if the Red Angel is the one constant that will resolve an aspect of Trek that has plagued this show for years? Time travel. Eccentric story arcs have been a part of Trek forever, so much so that at times, or I should say time travel eccentric story arcs have been a part of Trek forever. So much so that at times it feels like the show's mythos could break apart at any moment. And if that happens, the show is broken. The bigger picture of Trek, when you throw in all the time traveling aspects, including the events from the Prime timeline that led to the creation of the Kelvin timeline, it's so complex that every writer has to essentially walk on eggshells when dealing with certain aspects.
Well, yeah.
Voyager did it. The original series did it. Enterprise really did it. In fact, Star Trek Enterprise, the Mutara sector, is also where the last remnants of humanity live after the Xindi destroy Earth. Enterprise had the whole temporal war aspect that consumed almost 3 seasons of that show, I believe. My point to all of this is perhaps the Red Angel in the story is trying to resolve and fix all the time discrepancies and basically become a clever plot device that allows the writers to address certain elements that could potentially lead to breaking the continuity and allows the show's producers to fix the cracking mythos of Trek. When you think about it, after 50 plus years, Trek can use a good dusting off.
It could, because like we've discussed about this a long time ago about like how one of the biggest things about Trek is about destiny, about this is the way things are supposed to happen.
But just everything is so muddled.
And everything is so muddled at this point.
And when I say muddled, I don't mean it's bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of Trek history that involves time travel, and it could create a lot of writing issues, a lot of problems, a lot of dead ends that writers might get to and realize, shit, we can't do that because this was already done. So if they're using the Red Angel as a way to clear the board, it's very meta because you're using it to fix the issues of time discrepancies within their show, but then they're also using it as a way to clear the board for the writing room as well.
Yeah, because like I like the fact that maybe the Red Angel, just like what you said, narratively is trying to go into Star Trek's past and fix all the time discrepancies, and basically
when it comes to the actual story,
when it comes to the story, and basically say this is what destiny should happen. This is what has to happen. This is the destiny that should happen. This is the destiny that should have happened. That's why I'm like going, I still say they have to go and deal with the Kelvin incident. Yeah. Not the timeline, but the incident, the Kelvin incident.
I don't disagree. It does seem like everything's going in that direction, especially if this Red Angel's so directly connected to Spock. It has to highlight many of his legacies and things to come, just like the Kelvin timeline did with Kirk and Spock. They didn't, even though it was a reboot, they didn't forget their legacy. In fact, they were reminded of their legacy through Spock. He's like, you guys are meant to do great things together. You guys are meant to become the embodiment of a perfect friendship that is defined by a brotherhood that they have.
Yeah.
You know? So who knows, Dave? I have a feeling that the Red Angel is in fact being used multi-purposely. It's a tool for the writers, and it's being used as a way to resolve the time discrepancies within the actual story of Star Trek as well.
And honestly, up to this point, it's being used very well. It's not like, just like what you alluded to, it's not a jump the shark moment quite yet. I don't think it'll ever turn into a jump the shark moment. I hope it doesn't.
I think if it was going to, it would have happened already.
It would have happened already. Yeah. But the way that they've been using it has been very smart. It'll be interesting when the true answer comes out. What is the Red Angel?
I agree.
And I hope the payoff is there.
I want to come. That's the only payoff I want, Dave.
I want it to be Q.
Oh my God. Get over that. That'd be horrible at this point, Dave.
At this point.
It'd be the worst thing they could possibly do.
I want it to be Q.
Write a blog about it, okay? Don't talk about that shit on my show. So stupid. All right. Also, another thing is the show loves its metaphors, as do I. So the story of Alice's adventures in Wonderland.
Oh my God, it came full circle here.
Dude, it's so fucking poetic. It's been such a big part of Star Trek Discovery as it is, even way back to season 1 already, or even when you look at season 1. And it's such a great tool. It's been a great tool to bring in and create a poetic narrative for Burnham and now, of course, Spock. But there might be more to it than simply a tool to create a poetic story. I have to think that when Amanda essentially says that their children are on both sides of the looking glass, that it has a bigger meaning than just a cool metaphor.
Yes.
I feel like this not only strengthens one of the themes of the writers have been working with, of course, the idea of being a product of two worlds, or a child of two worlds, or a person of two worlds, but it can also have everything to do with time, split timelines, basically everything we've been discussing. You don't have a character say something so on the nose as, yes, Sarek, but you're not on both sides. I think she said, you're not on, yes, but our children are on both sides of the looking glass. And I know that's a cool way to say that they're the children of two worlds, right?
Yes.
That they are split by the ideology of Vulcan logic and human emotion.
Yeah.
And that's either way it works. But for her to say it so bluntly, I have a feeling that it's meant more for the purposes of the story and what's going on with Spock as well.
Oh yeah, and not only with Spock and Burnham, but also with, I think, the use of Alice in the Looking Glass and the whole storytelling element has really helped strengthen the character that we've always been saying we want to know more about, which is Amanda. I mean, the whole point about Spock's mother, she's always been portrayed just like what we mentioned a long time ago, on a pedestal. She's always been like this unattainable thing to Spock. And then like in Star Trek Next Generation, she's always portrayed as this very dutiful and loyal wife of Sarek. The thing I really dug about this was like the whole thing with Spock, Burnham, Sarek, and her. Amanda's, a bit of her true nature came out, which is she's willing to go down this road to protect her family. You know, to make sure that her son is treated well. She always wanted to maintain the fact that he understood his human nature. That's why she told him the story of Alice Through the Looking Glass. Same thing with Burnham, only with Burnham, it's the opposite. She wanted actually Burnham to understand that you're going to be learning about logic, but never forget about, it's going to be like Alice Through the Looking Glass. And you're right. When she makes the comment to Sarek that our children are the children of I can't remember the line either, but basically they're both on the both sides of the looking glass. Sarek's not, because Sarek is a completely logical person. And it was interesting seeing that conversation between husband and wife, because you also see it in Sarek that he kind of comes to this conclusion that you're right. I don't understand it. And it kind of tears him up inside, but he still kind of gathers himself and tries to think about this logically, what to do. Meanwhile, Amanda is kind of being steadfast and showing that she is that person that's willing to keep a secret to protect her family. She, just like what she did in Next Generation with when she protected and kept the secret of Sarek's disease, because she didn't want that being known out there. And I really dug the fact that we got to actually see more, I wouldn't say character growth, but more insight into the character of Amanda with this conversation.
I agree. And all of it was pretty seamless, and it just felt very organic.
It felt organic.
And all of it was done by properly using the whole concept of the story of Alice as a way to connect Burnham, Spock, Amanda, Sarek,
everything,
and keep their stories more nuanced and consistent. And that's something that we definitely needed, because we already know Sarek, Amanda, and Spock, and now Burnham, and even the other brother, I forgot his name now.
Cybok.
I mean, you're dealing with a very dysfunctional family, a logical family, but dysfunctional. Because there's just so many. It's just a culture clash of ideas and people. So it's interesting. It was fun to see all of that play out this week in a way that I felt like made everybody look good. It made Amanda not look like she's just in the background and like, hey, I do whatever my husband says and
exactly.
I have no personality of my own. But then it also showed that he deeply respects his wife and he loves his children as well. And that's something that is hard to do when you're dealing with a character that doesn't show or emote any type of emotion. So the way they did it this week was very strong. It was a good decision they made to go this route for sure, without a doubt.
That's why that one scene, the ending of it all, where Sarah kind of looks at Amanda and says, "I am not losing my children on the same day." That was actually, that came out of like left field, and you can sense the emotion behind it.
Oh yeah,
as Sarek, because what Amanda has been trying to do to Sarek is break down his logic.
Yeah.
And
she's tired of logical sex.
She's tired.
She wants some like passionate, slap me around and choke me sex. And he just won't do it because he doesn't have emotion.
She wants that rough Vulcan sex.
How about we wait till you're on the Panfar and we don't give you any sex for about a good 2 or 3 weeks. So you're fiending. Then come get me, Sarek. I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting with my Katra stone between my legs. Jesus Christ. All right. Now, the probe. Let's talk about this. And not the probe between Amanda's legs. That probe that came from the future. I think there's two sides to what is happening. The Red Angel is not the only power at work here. I have a feeling. The first half of the show, that was definitely the idea that they wanted us to think, that the Red Angel is pulling all the strings. And yes, the Red Angel is definitely a big part of all this. But the Red Angel has already revealed itself to be benevolent.
Yes.
It's already helping people. So this probe and the time rift could be yet another player that's yet to be revealed. Somebody with more, maybe a more nefarious agenda. So whatever took over Irium at the end, I don't think that's the Red Angel. I think it's something different. Maybe something that has actually spurred the Red Angel into action to resolve these issues or to get involved with Spock in some way, to save people. Maybe they're trying to correct whatever this other force is doing as well. We'll see.
We'll see.
We don't really have a lot to go on as of yet when it comes to that. But I'm sure within the next couple episodes, we'll definitely figure it out. I don't have many theories on this aspect yet, but I feel like what we witnessed this week was definitely a start of a new chapter, and it's something entirely different than the Red Angel. Connected, yes, but I don't think it's the Red Angel.
I don't think it's the Red Angel either, because this doesn't seem like something that the Red Angel would do.
Yeah, because it could have done it at any time.
It could have done it at any time.
Yeah, why now? Now, that being said, a killer probe or the infusion of Federation / human probe is not an entirely new idea. This whole concept, I know a lot of people are like, oh, we've seen this before. I'm like, well, yeah, and there could be connections. I feel like if anything, it's just a happy coincidence, but it could end up panning out to becoming something more relevant. But in the original Star Trek series episode, The Changeling, the Enterprise encounters a murderous robot called, I believe it was the Nomad.
Yes.
Who later turns out to be an ancient Earth probe that accidentally merged with an alien. And of course, we have Star Trek the Motion Picture.
With V'ger.
Yes, that whole, the energy cloud, that was V'ger, and ended up revealing itself as a NASA probe, Voyager 6.
Yes.
But was it like an AI upgrade? I don't remember the motion picture, and I'm ashamed of myself, Dave. Maybe we need to go back and watch it.
Well, no, the probe ran into a machine race that was surprised with its technology, and then they upgraded it to make it into an AI.
Yeah, I've really dropped the ball when it comes to the motion picture. In my mind, Wrath of Khan is the first Star Trek movie. I think
that's like that with all fans, dude.
I think the motion picture Star Trek is the only piece of Star Trek property I've always avoided. I have watched it, obviously, but I feel like it's Yeah, dude, it's the only thing I've ever neglected. I've watched all the movies literally on repeat, the TV episodes on repeat, but I never go back to the motion picture. Maybe
it's really
I should.
easy to actually go to miss the motion picture. I'm one
It's
of the
just not,
few
to
people,
me, it's not exciting.
I'm one of the
it's
few
not
people
bad.
out there that I actually enjoyed the motion picture.
I know you
liked
do.
it.
I know you do.
And I liked the concepts that was going on with it. That's why with this one, I was actually trying to figure out, okay, it's a machine. Something came from the future that made that probe better. And I was like thinking to myself, that sounds like the race that did that with V'ger and upgraded that probe.
That's a lot of people were saying. Do you think we're going to get a motion picture connection, though, Dave? Do you think that's a little... I don't think that's as sexy as some of these other potential ideas.
I don't think it's sexy, but I do think that it's something that does intrigue me, because the one thing about the motion picture I wish that we knew more about was about the alien race that sent V'ger back.
All right. Well, as long as it's there, if they end up going that route, as long as they're using it to tell their own story and not do what I always talk bad about. Let's not use that because you had no other option. You get what I'm saying? And you're trying to rely on nostalgia.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that it has to fit the narrative.
Yeah.
If they were to actually make a callback like that, they have to make that callback they have to make that callback fit their narrative.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't do what season 1 did, where it's, oh, look, here's this Easter egg. I'm going to just smash it in your face like a pie.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I really like about this second season is with their callbacks, all of it is tied to their narrative. Like, I didn't even realize the whole Nebula thing till you brought it up earlier. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's tying to Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
What the hell?
As long as these connections or these potential parallels are relevant to their own story and they're not just relying on things we've seen before, I feel like all of it will be just fine. Whether it ends up being a connection to the motion picture or the original series or all of the time discrepancies created by different events throughout the run of our Star Trek shows, as long as it works to separate this show and allow it to be its own thing, then I'm fine.
That's why I'm interested with that callback. I don't know if you want to get to
I
that
don't.
yet.
We need to go to a quick break. There's a lot to digest.
There's a lot to digest.
And I'll leave you all to mull it over, but we'll be right back.
Mindless automatons.
What are you looking at, nerd? Huh?
I thought I was looking at my mother's old douchebag, but that's in Ohio.
Geek Out Saturday.
But at the same time, then you wouldn't have this feeling that, okay, so Lucifer's just what? Sitting on his hands and knees?
With King Shark,
I
was getting a shark tattoo. And like, I watched the episode after.
The way it ended. I mean, you end it with Rey climbing the mountain, holding out the lightsaber to Luke. And
funny that some of my favorite Westerns are coming from the Euro countries. To this day, directors and writers are able to bring the heat in terms of American.
I mean, don't be wrong, Mad Max was really good, but they washed out a lot of it to kind of hide the special effects that they were doing.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Catch up on your favorite Rain Man digital geek shows every Saturday. DC on CW, Back to Tank, Weird West Radio, The Crossroads, and more. Geek Out Saturday on Rain Man Channel 001. Listen from the Rain Man digital app or tune in. Just search RM Channel 001.
The Rain Man Show. The Rain Man Show.
Oh, he's in some role playing.
Says the abuse occurred after the Diocese of Buffalo received a complaint about the priest from another alleged victim in 1980.
Jesus. What does a priest have with a gun? Like, why does he have a gun?
Is it the same guy that was paying for hookers?
That's a pastor.
I gotta keep my pimp hands strong.
That's different. I mean, I'm fucking hot bitches. This guy is a sicko trying to get on kids.
Yeah, sometimes I pay and the bitch don't want to put out.
I'll put a smackdown on the bitch, but I won't touch a kid. I ain't into that shit. That's some white shit. That's white shit.
White problem.
That's what. Hashtag white problem.
For more Rain Man, visit RainManShow.com.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to serve us. Resistance is futile.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Star Trek from the Holodeck. I am Michael Flores, your host, of course, and I am back. No, we did not change hosts halfway through. I probably didn't need to reintroduce myself, but I am here, Dave. How about you? Are you here?
I am here.
All right. The Red Angel didn't show you anything that your mind couldn't comprehend?
Not yet.
Okay. Mine showed me Detmer, and our future was bright.
Then that wouldn't make you go crazy. That would just make you splooge everywhere.
Oh, wow. That's true. All right. So Pike has been a refreshing part of this season because of the story last year. It didn't really make room for that Trek captain archetype, but this year is very different. The writers are sprinkling bits of character development for Pike through the last 7 episodes, and this week was no different. In fact, it came to a head. We are reminded in this episode of the dangerous situations that he has continued to throw himself into due to guilt. I love this as a motivator, as I said at the top of the show, for one big reason. It's something that is very relatable for me. I live in guilt, Dave. I was raised Christian, so I have that Christian guilt where everything you do is bad, no matter what, and you unfortunately make all your decisions based on guilt. That isn't a way to live, believe me. But most importantly, it has kept Pike's character and development consistent. And he's such a fantastic part of this series now that it's going to be really tough when it's time to lose him. Especially for those Trek fans, Dave, that are already well aware of his fate. In fact, I thought for sure we'd see something pertaining to the accidental, or I should say, I thought we'd for sure see something pertaining to the accident that destroys his body when he and Tyler were inside the time rift, when they started seeing glimpses of the future and the past. I thought for sure we were going to see a moment where he saw himself get burned alive by the radiation.
Yes. Were
you waiting for that, Dave?
I was waiting for that because I'm going, we're really getting close to the Glass Menagerie at this point.
10 years still, right?
Yeah, but the incidents that start the Glass Menagerie, though.
The cage.
The cage.
Yeah.
And we're getting really close to it. And we all know that basically they've alluded to it since the very beginning about like the cage and everything else and about Pike's destiny, that this is his destiny. And I started thinking about it, I'm like going, man, what happens if the Red Angel is trying to save Pike?
But why? See, I haven't really thought about that yet.
I thought about that after
him.
This.
I don't think it's about him. I think it's all about Spock.
I think it is all about Spock. But then there's this little nagging thing in the back of my head. They introduce Pike.
Well, you got to remember, Spock is directly connected. He's very intrinsically tied to Pike, even in the episode Menagerie in the first season of the original series.
Yeah.
He was very adamant about getting Pike to Talos 4 to allow him to live his life in peace and to have a life, because as he was in that wheelchair,
that's no way of living.
That was no way of living. And he had such a strong amount of respect for Pike that he wanted to make sure that he would be able to live his life, the remainder of his life, happy. So that's about Spock yet again. Yes, Pike can be a happy coincidence, right? I mean, he's a fantastic character. But if they start going in too many directions and it becomes about Spock and Pike and this person and that person, then it becomes convoluted. So yes, I do feel like it's going to end up by default dealing with Pike as well, but ultimately it has everything to do with Spock and the fact that he's connected to Pike. So we'll see how it all happens. But this Talos 4 callback this week, that was a big thing, Dave.
That's a big thing.
My jaw dropped because I didn't expect them to actually take us there this soon. The sequence of numbers that Spock was reciting was the coordinates for Talos 4, which is the planet that is, again, intrinsically tied to Pike's future / destiny.
That's what made me start thinking about it, is because, okay, we're getting when they made that connection, I was like going, they're making this kind of about Pike now. Why? Why in the world?
But like I said, Dave,
I
think it's about Spock, but they are connected. Spike and Spike. What am I saying?
You're merging Spock and Pike.
It's a new character I created. I'm shipping them together. That's going to be my fan fiction. They're going to be called Spike.
Spike.
No, Dave, I don't think it's all about Pike. I feel like it's about Spock, but Pike and him are connected. Their destinies at this time are intertwined. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. For people not in the know, obviously this planet, Talos 4, was featured in the original defunct pilot that did not get greenlit, The Cage, but it was, of course, later used in season 1 of Star Trek, the original series,
The
Menagerie. So they did end up using some of that footage, but I think retrospectively, they ended up releasing it in 1988. Was the first time The Cage was actually available to view in its entirety. And now I believe in various streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon, they actually have The Cage listed as the first episode, even though it's not technically, but retrospectively, they've made it even canon. So it'll be interesting to see how they connect it all. My interest is for sure piqued with this bit. And honestly, This kind of strengthens the theory about the Red Angel and the fractured bigger picture of Star Trek.
And that's what's interesting too, is I want to see how the Talosians fit into all this, because we're going to Talos 4 and we know the Talosians are there. Burnham's going there to try to heal Spock. And I'm like going, okay, how do the Talosians fit with the whole Red Angel narrative? Or can they? Is this because obviously Spock was connected to the Red Angel, and the Red Angel gave him these coordinate numbers for a reason. That is actually really intriguing to me, is like knowing on top of that, now that I think about it, the one thing that I'm really intrigued by is I wonder if they're going to tell us why Talos 4 was designated as a planet that was, I think it's rule number 9 or something.
General Order 7.
General Order 7.
People were banned and not allowed to even approach the system.
The system under penalty of death, which is severe.
Yeah, because of the psychic abilities of the aliens that live there, the indigenous aliens.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're going to actually touch on that, because it didn't seem like...
Of course they are, dude. Well, like, why go to Talos 4 and deal with the Talosians and their ability to have a psychic link with humans? If anything, dude, they're going to be used as a way to get what's inside of Spock's head out. They're going to find a way to project it so that Burnham can see what's going on in Spock's head. We're going to get literally a down the rabbit hole episode. I guarantee you the next episode is going to be filled with symbolism and metaphors, because Burnham will be put inside his head.
Oh yeah. And when you think about it, dude, this is going to be really trippy, because the Talosians are like one of those...
They're not bad,
but their powers are messed up.
They're just so evolved that they don't really understand human
nature anymore.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. Let's talk about Saru. He didn't have a whole lot going on this week, but the little that we do get of him is always good. Saru's casual, impromptu tutelage of Ensign Tilly is fucking perfect. And we've seen it throughout this season. And this is why he should be the captain of Discovery eventually. He has just a great rapport with the crew.
Yeah, dude, did you see that basically when he took control, he had so much command now?
I don't even care about the command aspect. I care about the rapport with the crew. Like
the rapport with the crew.
He conveys a seamless command. Yeah, I agree that he is, he's more confident in his abilities. Absolutely, Dave. But what I'm going at is the fact that he's such an interesting character, not only because of who or how he has been written, but how they choose to have him interact. That's the best way sometimes to help flesh out someone or to help build on their character a bit. The moment between Tilly and Saru this week was, to me, one of the highlights, when she barges in and wants to curse and she says freaking in front of Pike, and Saru just shakes his head like, no, now's not the time. Don't act like this. That's not the type of professionalism we display on the bridge. I've never noticed this before, but I think after this week's episode, Dave, I think Is Tilly on the spectrum? Is that what they're doing with her? And if people don't know what the spectrum is, does she have a form of autism?
She seems it.
Because people with autism act like that. My stepdad is on the spectrum, and he acts a lot like her. He doesn't really know how to behave in certain social
aspects.
Yes. I don't know. If that's what they're doing with her, I think that'd be kind of cool. Even if she doesn't have it, because I would think in the future they would be able to cure autism. If that's something, if autism is considered a disability, then I would think it's something that they were able to cure in the future. If they can cure the, cancer and AIDS and basic head colds, then I'm assuming they can handle, a personality disorder.
Yeah.
So regardless, if they're using it simply as a way or a source of inspiration for her character, because she is very eccentric and odd, I think that works as well without having to state, oh yeah, by the way, she's on the spectrum. That's why she acts like this.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, I like it. The interaction between Saru and Tilly is just one of a dozen reasons why Saru is just a fantastic character. And another example of how great Doug Jones is as an actor.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like Doug Jones has taken this character. Arguably, Saru is actually literally become the most favorite Star Trek character among fans, I've noticed. With the release of the book, with Brightest Star, with the last episode, especially when the last episode came out, people absolutely came out in adoration of Saru. And I'm like thinking to myself, that's why I said, I think Saru can honestly become the next big captain for Star Trek.
He should be.
He should be.
I can't imagine them not handing over the captain reins to him next year. If Pike is no longer a part of the story next season, or at least out on loan to Discovery, I don't understand why they wouldn't give him the position at this point.
And it's funny too, when you think about in retrospect how they introduced Saru, there were so many naysayers saying that we've never seen an alien like this. He doesn't belong here. Now those same people are like going, wow, Saru's actually really been fantastic.
Yeah, he's definitely a character that a lot of the trolls and the regular Star Trek fans have united behind.
Yeah.
Even trolls are like, well, Cycle, say this for Discovery. The best thing is Saru. Everybody else sucks. It's not true, but at least people can agree on Saru. And if the writers are smart, dude, let's unite the fandom by just making him the captain. I mean, as you said last season, we have never been in this position before to have such a unique captain.
Yes.
So it's definitely changing it up, and I would definitely be all for it.
Yeah, I'd be really honestly, I'll be really disappointed if by season 3, Saru's not in command of Discovery. I would be really disappointed if that happened.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Georgiou. She's up to something for sure. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think it conflicts with Burnham. I don't think it's as evil as people may think, or even as much as the writers would have us believe. They're definitely playing with that idea. I feel like Burnham will be the character's saving grace. Michelle Yeoh does a fantastic job, but if the writers hope to create a show like the Section 31 spinoff, around her character, then they've got to give her redeemable qualities. And that's what they've been doing with her all season. Moments like this week, but also like a few weeks back when she made faces at the baby. Just little things like that. There's always things you can do to justify why we care about a character that may be a bad person on paper or not such a great person on paper. It's a reasons why a lot of movie writers or television writers will give a villain a dog or a cat or even a child, because it's a way to say, well, they're the bad guy, but they want to create some sympathy for the character. And they have been doing that. If you know what to look for, they have been doing that with Georgiou since the beginning of the season. And what we got this week is just more of that. And I have a feeling that Burnham will be her way to redemption. I do like how she is handling her assignment with Section 31. I will say that. She's not... I'm really against writers that will bring a character into a show or bring back a character from a show and give her a completely different environment, and then suddenly she's a different person. We have to remember, Georgiou was the emperor of the Terran Empire. She's not going to just quit her bad habits. And that's why I feel like it makes a lot of sense that she's handling her assignment with Section 31 as if she was still the emperor of the Terran Empire. She's using blackmail, politics, leverage. But through that idea, we did find out that Leland is somehow connected to the death of Burnham's parents as well. So it's all practical. It's not just useless scratches on the script. They're everything they're using is everything they're putting into that script is being utilized. There's nothing wasted, as I said at the top of the show. And when it comes to Section 31 and Georgiou, it's exactly the same thing. I'm really curious to see what they do with her character.
I'm really too, because like that's been one of the things I'm really anticipating for Section 31 is they have to give a compelling lead character. And if Georgiou is going to be that lead character, she, just like what you said, she has to have those redeeming qualities.
We can't have a Star Trek show about a bad person.
A bad person, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, Dave, that this season, when it comes to her character, it's about repairing her character. And I'm not saying repairing because there needs to be any course correction. She was, I think, fabulously written last season. But they do need to win us over. They have to convince the audience that she is not all bad. Otherwise, we're going to be wondering why we're watching her story each week on a Star Trek show.
But the one thing that I'm worried about that, though, is like, as a Star Trek fan, if they were to give her redeeming qualities, does that ruin the fact that she came from the mirror universe?
No, don't take her fangs out. There's things that you do and things that you don't. One thing you don't ever want to do with a character like this is you never want to remove their fangs. You want to keep them ambiguous. So you're not going to tell us Georgiou is a good person. You're not going to even directly show that she's a good person. They're going to continue to do little things like they've been doing, like her liking the baby, like her obvious care for Burnham. Those are the things that will win us over without removing the fangs from a character that needs them. Otherwise, why do we want to watch her on Section 31 as well?
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22, Dave. Like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So you have to be very careful how you do it. And so far, they've done a pretty damn good job with planting those seeds. And it's only about planting those seeds, I should say. All right, Irium is probably the most mysterious character on that bridge. We know close to nothing about her. I couldn't be more excited by what they set up at the end of the episode. With all the character development this season, it was only a matter of time, honestly, before Irium had her due. And here we are, finally, at the very end of the 7th episode, at that halfway mark, they have finally given Irium something of interest to do. Now, what are your expectations? Do you have any theories on what they're going to do with this character moving forward with that little bit that we got? Or is it just all highly speculative right now?
It's borderline highly speculative, but what I'm hoping that they do is actually give Irium a bit more personality. Because just like what we've mentioned in the past about this character, the question has always become, is she a part of the crew or is she just a tool that the crew use? Because how do people look at robots? How do people look? Right. Is she an android? What makes her different from Data?
And if you remember, a lot of people were uneasy with Data during the first season.
Yeah, and if you notice, Discovery, Irium's treated as part of the crew.
Yeah, so I feel like this will be a perfect time in this series to expand on that idea. Let us know what she is, and how she's viewed by the crew. I think that will fix a lot of the problems behind her character because we just simply don't know enough.
We don't know enough. And honestly, dude, ever since Discovery started, when they gave those little tidbits of screenshots, this is the one character that I basically go, what the hell is she? And it's always intrigued me about this character. I mean, I know you like Detmer and everything as one of the side crew.
That's just a joke.
Yeah, as a joke. But honestly, I'm more intrigued by Irium out of the whole crew.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. I do feel like we need to learn about all of them eventually. I'm very patient. I don't think the show needs to be about them.
Yeah, and most of all, I don't want them to just copy the same old story we've seen in the past with robots, especially since you're dealing with like coming off of a Star Trek series where the last great robot was Data.
Yeah, I'm hoping it becomes like a Skynet thing, and she ends up becoming the Terminator, and she was sent to assassinate Spock. I think that'd be really cool.
Is that some fan fiction?
That's terrible. All right, we need to move into our final thoughts, Dave. Yes, we are already there. This is the moment where you can tell me your final thoughts, Dave, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, this episode, Star Trek Discovery continues on its journey of giving us great episodes in season 2. I honestly love this episode. I like the character play between Pike and Tyler. Tyler is turning into one of my favorite characters to watch and see.
See
what happens.
Yeah.
Because I want to see, we've been talking about Children of Two Different Worlds. I feel more for Tyler because he's a character that is forced into that two world, not by birth, just by Frankensteining two people together.
Yeah.
And two people of different alien races. Like, I've always wondered, is Vogue still in there? And Pike brought up a good point. You're still Vogue. You still are the guy that killed like those crew members. Doesn't change anything. And I'm like going, that's a very valid point. I mean, Tyler's turning into one of the most interesting characters, and I hope that basically they continue on with him in Section 31, because I think that's the series that he belongs in.
Yeah.
So overall, strong episode. I give it an A. Actually, an A+.
Yeah. I agree, Dave. Strong episode. Definitely an A. It did a lot for the story. It managed to slow down the Burnham side of things, while also keeping the pacing going. And I strongly feel like the decision to do a split narrative this week, or a dual narrative, was very smart, because you're covering a lot more ground, especially moving into the second half of the season. I'm sure they wanted to have these final pieces in play before continuing into the second half. So strong episode. I agree with every single choice they made this week. I cannot wait for the new episode next week. All right, so this concludes our discussion. I want to thank everybody for listening. You can find all of our shows on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, as well as Spotify. Just search Star Trek From the Holodeck. Also, don't forget, get more Star Trek From the Holodeck discussions every single month by heading over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/RainmanDigital, and pledge $5 or more, which will give you more content, up to 2 to 3 additional shows every single month. And if you're a Star Trek freak, that means during Discovery season, you're going to get up to 9 shows a month from us. So be sure to help us out, help yourself out. And I want to thank you, David.
Thank you. Let's live long and prosper.
I couldn't help but notice your pain. My pain, it runs deep. Share it with me.
End simulation.